Well, welcome to the latest episode of the Scale Model World podcast. I'm David Howell from Tyrell Models, and your co-host is none other than Wayne Green from the world of Wayne. Hi, Wayne.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Welcome to the Scale Model World podcast.
Well, thanks for joining us again, Wayne, and also our listeners. And I would say to everyone that is listening to this current episode, please do get in touch. I always say this at the beginning of these episodes. If you have any sort of questions, any queries, then please do contact us. Our contact details are in the description. Of course, obviously you can contact us through our websites and also my store. As this this podcast series is absolutely for all of our listeners. Just whatever kind of model making you're into. We are trying to cover all of the sort of bases, I guess, with all of that. So if you do have a sort of a question that's sort of burning, then please do send those in, and we do have a couple later on, as it happens, Wayne. So we'll get to those in a little while.
Excellent.
We will start these off with sort of what's been happening since the last one. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. So you've been basically trekking across Europe, and I've been visiting various toy model shows. But I think we're all back in the UK now, aren't we?
Yep.
After our sort of trek across various parts of the UK and Europe.
Yeah. Well, for now, I said I enjoyed Sorrento. It's a very lovely place. I'll definitely go back there. In fact, I'm probably going to take Mrs. World away in there next year.
Absolutely.
Although she's been there years and years ago, but I love the place. It's very good. Takes an age to get to from Naples because the road system's terrible, and I didn't realise they don't use traffic lights in Italy. So you can imagine what the roads are like there, and it's each man for himself out there. But that was good. And then this week I've also, this couple of weeks, I've completed 2 models. So the Mercedes 300 SL from Agora Models is completed, and I've just completed the Corvette Stingray, which is a lovely vehicle. That video is going to be on the channel soon, but I did have a little hiccup at the end, but I'm going to let you wait to the video till you see that.
Well, your phrase is that's kind of what you like to do. You make all the mistakes for us, and it's absolute godsend. I must admit, all the videos have helped me out endlessly with the partworks, because let's be honest, sometimes the instructions aren't that good.
No,
or you go, is that? And often I get stuff in backwards or upside down.
This wasn't an instruction problem. This was a Wayne problem.
Human error with these things is an absolute issue. I find with mine. I can stare at something and I still get it wrong.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. So I was putting my my DB5 together. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I think I put the drive shaft in and another part in, and then it says, now you can connect the 2 parts of the chassis, and there was maybe a 2 centimeter gap on the end of the drive shaft. I said, what's going on there? So I backtracked 4 stages. Yep, I got the first part the wrong way around.
Wow.
So
that could be a pain.
Take it all to bits. 4 stages had to come to bits just so I could swap round one single part so the drive shaft.
I've done that before. As a matter of fact, I did that on the Ixo Lancia. I put the chassis the wrong way around, and that screwed everything up. But I did that live, you see, on a live stream, so that makes it even more stressful.
Well, absolutely. I don't think I do this stuff live. Good grief. I spent hours staring at this stuff. Is that right? I get a little bit paranoid now. Is that in the right way around? Is it? And I'll just double check, triple check, quadruple check before I put the final screw in. And still get it wrong. So I think channels like yours are an absolute godsend, because ultimately it's I think that's right, but is it? Or is that wrong? Or often, is that the right screw? Because it doesn't work.
Yeah. Or I'm really having trouble with this, and then they watch me and they see me sweating and crying as well, and it's like, misery loves company.
Not alone, absolutely, and that's exactly what really this channel's all about. I think this podcast, I think our community, we're all in this together, guys. So if you do any issues, you're not alone. It's not you're not letting the side down. If you need any help, then absolutely do reach out. Now, for me, it's usual same old, all the usual builds. But I was at a toy fair when this a couple of days ago. So I always go to these things, especially the big ones, sort of NEC and in London, because you always find a few kits dotted about,
Yeah.
or some interesting stuff which has been imported. And I didn't even know this existed. There's a new 1/72nd scale ornithopter, from June, the movie series. Get the small ones. There's a 1/72nd version. Absolutely beautiful model. A monster of a box. Lord knows where I'm going to put it. It's about 30 or 40 centimeters when it's finished, but absolutely amazing. So I picked that up and a couple of other things from. I don't know if you know. Do you know Pegasus Models?
Yes, I do. They're
They
the
do a lot
people
of
that made my
sci-fi.
jaws in resin. Well, it wasn't in resin, just the jaws and the hooper. But yeah, that's that. Yeah, they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of those knocking around as well. So I picked up a really fun-looking. They call it the Area 51 UFO,
Wow.
with a couple of little green men. So I'm really looking forward to putting that and also lighting that. That's going to look amazing with some kind of strobe light effect or some
Wow.
kind of moving lighting. But that was from Pegasus Models,
Yeah.
which were again fairly well. I guess there was quite a lot of that about. So I think a lot of the sort of toy dealers, they sort of keep an eye on that kind of marketplace.
Yeah.
So if you are around and about and you do see a sort of fairly large toy fair, the advice is go along, because chances are you may find something that you've been looking for, or something that like Pegasus, who's quite hard to get in the UK unless you import it, and also the stuff from the Dune movie.
Yeah.
You might find someone that's done it for you, which was my experience. So fantastic! Yeah,
Wow.
came away with a couple of fantastic looking kits for later for later on.
Was it really busy
Which
down there then when you went?
we do really early days. We go
Right.
early bird,
Oh,
which is very expensive.
yeah.
But you get in about what early bird's 8 o'clock. I
Hmm.
think general opening's 10:30.
Right. Wow.
So you get all that time with, frankly, just the hardened collectors. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they pay because obviously they want to get in early and get the best stuff. We do that because of the crowds, and it's true. By the time I'd finished about 11 o'clock or so, it's only been open half an hour. And as I approached the exit to leave, it was absolutely rammed.
Wow.
It was huge. It's just crazy, and that was half an hour in, and it doesn't. I think it doesn't close to full.
Yeah.
So go as early as you can. Is my advice. So you can at least get to the stalls and have a good mooch round.
This weekend, I'm actually got an adventure on. I'm meeting a viewer, a YouTuber that you may know, a guy called Ian Schwartz who runs Pitstain Hobbies. He's coming
Ah,
over from America, and he's actually here
right.
now, and he's spent the last week in England. He actually visited the Bovington Museum, sort of Tank Museum
Mhm.
and stuff, which
Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
never done, so I'd love to do that.
No, neither have I. I really must do that. There was a model event at the Tank Museum.
There was, yeah.
But it's a massive trek from me. It really is.
It is down
But
there, yeah.
but people tell me it is absolutely astonishing. Just if you can, absolutely, and
Go.
I'll try to put it on my diary for next year.
Yeah, no, definitely go visit that. But while I'm in London, see, I'm
Mm,
meeting Ian in the afternoon.
yep.
I'm actually going to be going to the Burlington Arcade, which is just off of
Indeed.
Green Park
Hmm.
Station, opposite the Ritz
Hmm.
Hotel. They've got the Agora Models £25,000 DB5 gold in there, and
If you fancy one.
I'm going to be checking it out and doing some footage of it. So I'm hoping to have some. I'm hoping they'll let me touch it. I want to touch it. I'll
Oh,
bring some cotton gloves and stuff, But
I was going to say you put a massive thumbprint on their shiny finished model. Wow, that would put a dent in your credit card,
Oh
wouldn't it?
no, definitely,
Wow.
definitely. But I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I did see the Burlington Arcade when they had the DB5
Yeah, yeah.
there, but to see the Model
Indeed,
One as
indeed.
well now is going to be pretty impressive, I think.
It'll
So,
be
so that's
amazing,
my
wouldn't it?
adventure this weekend.
Mm.
So it's going to be fun.
Get out and about, guys. That's the thing. As I say often, if you're not already, have a look at the RPMS site, because that lists all of the model events for all the IPMS groups, and often every couple of 3 weeks there's usually one somewhere,
Hmm.
probably within driving distance. I would encourage everyone to go along, because they are amazing. There's a few dealers there, plenty of other IPMS groups also show their stuff as well, and often I'm there filming these things. So it's if you do have one near you, or you fancy a bit of a sort of trek out, then do try and look for an IPMS event somewhere.
Definitely.
Of course, what we'll also try and do, of course, is when there are other events, we'll try and obviously mention those if we're aware of them before these things go out to air. and we'll sort of try and keep everyone sort of up to date if there's something happening, which particularly if we're going to be there.
Yeah.
Do come along and accost us, and as I've often said, we don't bite. Do come along and say hello. It would be very, very good to sort of meet people that are obviously listening to us.
Definitely.
Now, the other thing I found in the news today for a couple of things. Again, I'm sure you must know Fantastic Plastic,
Yes.
who also do a very interesting, very brand new Fiber XL5 kit.
Wow.
Has just dropped.
Uh-huh.
Really looks very, very nice indeed. It's 1 to 288th scale, which is whatever. But it looks very interesting. I think a couple of the magazines have already sort of covered it as a review, but it does look very, very good. It's I think it's 30 odd parts plus some 3D printed bits and pieces as well. I think they're in vac forming the canopies.
Mm-hmm.
So the artwork I've seen looks absolutely amazing. But that's from Fantastic Plastic. I'm hoping to get hold of mine soon, so I'll be doing an unboxing of that. But I'm quite looking forward to gluing that one together. It looks amazing.
Cool.
And the other news I sort of came across was good old Airfix again. They have been at it with lots and lots of new releases. But they're doing those. They're doing sort of kits with those special coins, which link to wherever it happens to be that time. I think at the moment it's aircraft again.
Yeah.
But again, limited edition. You get the kit and you get a coin. It's occurred to me that'd be great for the stuff we do.
Yeah, no, definitely.
If you could get something like that, that links to a kit, and maybe limited edition, like a Fiber XL5, coin collection.
No, that'd be wicked. And it'd
that'd
be
be really
it'd be
nice.
another drive to actually buy the product, because like the Lancaster bombers just come up for a coin as well. But we're building
Indeed,
that,
yeah.
and I believe we have one for the Spitfire as well, and we have one for the
Yeah.
Bismarck, I think. So that's
Mm,
interesting. Now you
Oh,
said
it's-
that, yeah, it's a very good idea.
nice-
It's
a
like having
nice
your
little-
PG tips for your
Yeah.
collector's cards in them, you know.
Wow, you're showing your age. Had a load of those, matey. Yeah, I think they're probably in a box somewhere. But I was terrible with those things. I sort of sellotape the cards onto the pages, so
Yeah.
it's not a good look.
No.
But yeah, those are highly collectible these days.
Wow.
I see a lot of those in frames again at toy fairs.
Yeah.
People have framed up the PG Tips cards, and they do look very, very impressive. I collected obviously the Apollo 1 and all that kind of stuff. That's really what I wanted to do. But you're getting your retro head on again. although you better have a retro space. So
I know, that's gonna be amazing.
So when you open the door, it will be some kind of like time machine.
It's going to look like, well, that's what I'm going for. You're even going to have
Yeah.
that musty smell, I think, of the 80s.
Absolutely, yeah, that distinctive whiff of old tech.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
the 80s was the era of scratch and sniff, if you remember, wasn't it? So,
It was, people out there remember that. If anyone's scratching their heads, ask your dad or your granddad what's a scratch and sniff, and he'll explain what that is. It's nothing dodgy. It is
It's a
absolutely
thing.
something. Yeah, it is. It's still a thing in some areas, but it was definitely a thing when we were younger.
Mhm.
Now we've had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So I always say, please do send these things in. We have had a couple of questions. First one's from Adrian Arnold. He says we all build sort of partworks, sci-fi, that kind of thing. Not sure if we've answered this one before, which is why I want to sort of ask it again.
Yeah.
When we were younger, obviously partworks didn't exist. So what were you building when you were 10, 12, 13, when you were first into model making? What was your passion then?
Well, for me, it was because you didn't have sci-fi models. So for me,
right.
it was just aircrafts, but it was still related to space. So I built the space shuttle and the Boeing 747. The one where it's mounted on the back of it.
Yeah. The big one.
But
Yeah.
I was never good at painting, and back then we had the enamel paints in the little tin,
Yeah.
which you didn't have an airbrush, so you're slapping it on with a paintbrush, and it just looked terrible. It's like putting emulsion on a car. But
Yes.
so I built these models and never painted them. So I just I
right.
never painted them.
Right.
So I just had the models
Right.
built, and I think I got that from my dad, because my dad built a Concorde. I think that was a Revell kit,
Ah,
and
yeah.
again, never painted. He just built the thing. He just liked
Just
building the
built the
model.
kit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Well,
but that's
that's
pretty much
interesting.
me. I've never been really interested in tanks or vehicles
Mm,
when I
mm.
was younger. It was mainly aircraft, and then I was the guy that built the Spitfires and have them on cotton on my ceiling. So
Yep.
you're dodging them
Yep.
as you're going in your bedroom.
Yeah, that was a similar experience, but for me, it was armor. It was tanks, half tracks, that kind of thing. Never built a plane in my life.
Wow.
I didn't intend to. It's when I got back into the hobby, I said to myself, I want to try out everything. I tend to lean towards sort of sci-fi, absolutely, but I've built other things. I'm in my car phase at the moment,
Uh-huh.
but I would try and build everything. Everything from ships all the way through to some kind of aero. So I never built aero. I never did that.
Yeah.
It was all sort of tanks, etc. And if I could find the odd anything linked to space, so
Yeah.
I did all I did the Apollo kits as well, over and over and over
Uh-huh.
when they came when they
Yeah.
were available, particularly the module, which I think Airfix did very early on. So I built that because I had a perch on for always anything to do with space, and it's still the case.
Yeah.
Anything to do with that. I built exactly the same model of the space shuttle you did,
Uh-huh. Wow.
and so on, because that's all that was available.
Yeah.
But now it's really sky's the limit, literally.
Uh-huh.
So really, Andrew, it's a case of, well, it's really what you're into, I think, at the time. So I was really looking at really tanks, armor, that kind of thing, bit of sci-fi if it was there, but really it was space, but never any aero, which is odd.
Well, it
But
depends
I
how
do,
young you want to go as well, because like I used to
yeah,
collect Kinder eggs. And they're just like your
yeah, yeah,
Gundam
yeah,
models of today. I mean, now they're just simple things
uh,
inside there. But back in the 80s and
back
90s,
in
they were a
then.
lot more
Mm.
elaborate putting those things together.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely, it is. So it's really what sort of, I guess, sparked your interest initially. Well,
mhm.
why wasn't it planes? Don't know. Tanks are just more interesting. I've no idea why. I really couldn't tell you, Adrian, why I leant towards armor.
Mhm.
It's a strange one. So my IPMS group, 80% of them are aero.
Yeah.
They build planes, and I rock up with spaceships and aliens because I'm the sci-fi guy. So there you go. That's
You're the
kind of what I do.
outcast. You're the one. He's
Well,
the strange guy.
he's a weird one. Yeah, what's he going to bring in today? And we have sort of regular competitions, so we get to Christmas. You go, what's he going to bring this Christmas?
Wow.
Yeah, that's that kind of weirdness. Absolutely, if it talks to two modelers, it'd be a completely different experience.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole thing, because there's so much you could sort of really get involved with today. Now, a second question is from Steve Johnson. Now he's asking about our workshops.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, we both have sort of dedicated spaces. Um, he's thinking of something sort of the same. What could he do to maybe create a dedicated space, just for his model making?
Yeah.
And he just wondered about our approaches. So I think we were aware of how your space came about, and I'll
Mhm.
explain how my space came about. But for you, of course, it was literally a surprise, which I think is probably an understatement.
Yeah, it was. I said I went away on holiday to Scotland, and when I came back, a workshop was built for me. So
What's this?
by the community, which was crazy. And when I came, I mean, the video's on YouTube, so you can watch
Yeah,
that
yeah,
and just see the
yeah.
reaction on my face. But when I came in here, I had an empty room, but Ian from Partwork Upgrades had mounted a television to the wall. That was all that was in there, and I had
Right.
this neon light, the World Away neon light behind me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So just those two things dictated where everything had to go in the workshop. So that's
Gotcha.
why I've laid my workshop up like this. Now, the advantage I've got is that my build area where I do all my part work builds is at the complete opposite side of the workshop to anywhere I'm doing painting. Because when you
Mhm.
do painting in an enclosed space, I mean, it is very well ventilated in there. I mean,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
workshop, half the workshop comes open. But when you're doing
yeah.
any sort of painting, doesn't matter how good you are, like keeping the paint inside your enclosure, you will get this funny sort of whitish, blackish dust on everything. And
Yes.
it's a pain in the neck. And if you're starting to keep models in your workspace as well, it's going to be covered in there. So you need to be conscious that if you're going to be sharing a part work stage with a painting stage, it's going to cause a little bit of an issue. So, but other than
Mm,
that, I try to keep as much space as possible because things can clutter up quite quickly. The
yes,
biggest thing is
absolutely.
the carpet monster. So if you drop something and you've got a cluttered area, you're never going to
Yeah.
find it. So I really make sure I don't keep clutter in my workstation as well. And I have all my tools to hand. Obviously, I've got the your workstation here with all my tools behind me. So
Yeah.
I don't want for anything. I can actually just reach over and not have to get up. I could actually stay in my chair all day.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Now my workshop is something I looked at. I spent months researching sort of garden offices and all that kind of thing, looking for a space for me. I was going to go down, excuse me, a very similar route. I'd looked at standard garden sheds. That was
Mhm.
my intention. Get standard garden shed, do the insulation, put the floor in, blah blah blah, all of that. I was going to do the whole thing, but I tripped over a website called Project Timber.
Mhm.
So go and Google Project Timber, and their range of garden offices. Now, a lot of them were obviously way too big for something for the space I have in my back garden because that's where it is.
Yeah.
But they do a smaller version of that called the Den. That's what they call it,
Wow.
and it's aimed at people that want a very small or a compact office space. And I thought that's perfect for a model making studio or a model making workshop. So I had a look at all the spec, etc., and that's the one I went with. I went with it's called the Den from Project Timber, and oddly enough, comes flat packed as a kit, which is interesting. So a builder friend of mine helped me put that together. So we put it together literally as you would assemble a kit with which we all know what that feels like. All went together fine. It's got PVC windows, proper door. It's insulated. I put lights in it. All the rest
Wow.
of it, put heating. All of that kind of stuff. So that's how I built my, or at least the kit built my space. Then I did something very similar. I put extraction in for airbrushing. I have
Mhm.
something called a bench vent,
Yep.
which is basically like an air cupboard, but
Uh-huh.
I can do it indoors. Again, all of this stuff, if I'll link it to the description below if you guys are interested, and particularly you, Steve, if you're interested in these sort of components. What I would say with mine is be very conscious of where you locate it and orientate it, because I only had one space I could put mine in, and it gets lots and lots of direct sunlight.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so that hits the windows,
Mhm.
and it is very, very hot in the summer. So
Wow.
I've had to think about that. I've put some reflective films on the windows to
Mhm.
try and get the temperature down because in the summer it gets very, very hot. So what I would say is think about the window space. I think yours is not too bad because the windows aren't huge, but have a think about where you orient. Where in your garden or wherever you're going to build say, a space. If it is going to have lots and lots of glazing, where does the sun come in? And if it's going to hit the front of the thing, you might think about moving that maybe 45 degrees or 90 degrees,
Yeah.
so it's not being hit by direct sun. But that's kind of that's something I didn't even think about until it was
Ah,
finished.
it's very
Then,
clever. Yep.
then got to the first summer, and I was roasting in there. Uh, so it's a bit crazy. But have a think about all of that, Steve. I say all these manufacturers and suppliers. I'll point to in the description below. But I basically built my space out of a kit,
Wow.
which was quite. I thought
Ironic.
it was a nice,
From what
nice,
you've
nice little link there. Yes, and didn't have to do knock a nail in or do any kind of insulation.
Excellent.
Pretty much as yourself. A ready-made space. But of course, if you want to do that in an existing space, have a think about all of that. If you're a spare room, a
Mhm.
garage, that kind of stuff. Have a think about where you're going to site stuff. Where's it going to go? Yes, again, extraction or some kind of ventilation. Ventilation is very, very
Yeah, it is.
important.
Yep.
Particularly the kind of materials that we sort of throw around in airbrushes. Absolutely. You would think if my wife's come into my workshop sometimes, it's like, oh wait, stop, because I've got my bench vent going. I've got goggles on, and this looks like a hazmat gear, frankly, because I'm spraying some really toxic stuff onto car bodies. It's like you go away until I finished, because it's really really not good for you. So yeah, have a think about all of that, Steve. It's a lot to take on, but if you think about what you want to do, how much space you've got, the kind of model making you want to do, then you can create a space either literally from a garden shed. Or these days, of course, you can spend quite a lot of money if you want to on these garden offices, which also make fantastic workspaces.
Yep.
Are you building the fan home kit model? We've got something that will take your model to the next level. Introducing the Ultimate Electronic Kit by Tyrell Mods, the pinnacle of electronic upgrades for your fan home kit model. This isn't just an upgrade, it's a complete electronic overhaul. At the heart of this revolutionary kit is the Alpha Circuit Pro, a total replacement for the supplied mainboard. It supports all the original electronics LEDs, but that's just the beginning. The Alpha Circuit Pro includes a brand new LED kit for rear lights and side markers, an upgraded electronic dashboard, a state-of-the-art scanner, a new voice box, and an audio system with a Pro speaker that packs more power and quality while still fitting perfectly into the original slot. And the best part, all of these components are synchronized. They communicate seamlessly, creating a harmonized experience that's controlled by an RF remote and soon via a mobile app update. Yes, you heard that right. Your kit model will have synced animations, sound, and effects like never before. Kit and car modes, scanner, voice, and voice box change at the press of a button. German, French, and English audio built in. Internet radio and music through kit speakers. Over-air updates via Wi-Fi. And built-in power mod, the Alpha Circuit Pro powers your entire model. But wait, there's more. Tyrell Mods offers a range of other essential upgrades and mods for other iconic models, including the Hot Toys DeLorean, Phantom Ecto 1, and the DeLorean Time Machine. Each component is completely bespoke and crafted with the highest attention to detail. So don't miss out on these incredible upgrades. The ultimate electronic kit for your Phantom kit model is more than just an enhancement, it's a game changer. Visit myclanemods.com to get yours today and see why enthusiasts are raving about this kit. Tyrell Mods, where precision meets passion. We've come to the time in this episode where we welcome our special guest. Today's guest is none other than Ross Graham. Many of you may know him for his amazingly useful YouTube channel and his website, Fauxhammer. Well, welcome, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
Hi, Wayne. Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us, Ross. It's been a while. We've been trying to get you on, haven't we? It's been a few months trying to wrangle calendars, but you're finally here, which is fantastic. We really wanted to get you on because I think most of our listeners will have, an appreciation of what 3D printing is, how it impacts their hobby. I think we're talking absolutely about obviously scale model kit builders, but really everyone else. We in this podcast series we always say it's not just for the kit builders, it's not just for the part workers. It's really for everyone. If you're a maker, I think that's kind of how I tend to characterize this. You know, if you're a maker, this is the channel for you. And I think 3D printing, it's come along so far, but I still think there's a level of maybe confusion, a level of intrepidation, because there's so many machines out there, so many things to think about. So we really want to get you on and, frankly, pick your brains. That's kind of what we want to do. Before we do that, though, I think it'd be a good idea to maybe set the scene. I'm sure loads of people listen to this. I've obviously subscribed to your YouTube channel and know you from your website. But what's your background, Ross? What sort of brought you to maybe founding the website and, of course, obviously the YouTube channel? Where did Fauxhammer come from?
Boredom, I guess. So I think it started as like Ross Graham on blogspot.com, and I was writing about like, hey, they've just announced the Final Fantasy VII remake, and Castle Crashers has come out. Or I had an old Media Smart PC, and I did a guide on how to convert that into a network attached storage using FreeNAS and stuff.
Gotcha.
And then when I had kids, I was working at Vision Express at the time, and I managed to land an interview at Games Workshop for working in their IT department. I've worked in IT and technology for years, and I got an interview at Games Workshop. I thought, you know what, I'll nip in and I'll see what's changed, ready for my interview. Anyway, I came out having spent £250 later.
As you do.
And spoke to, thanks to a nice guy called James, who still works there, and who's got a myriad of jobs. Lovely guy at Games Workshop. And I came out and I thought, you know what, I'll get back into this hobby. And then I started looking at guides online and realizing, well, all the guides are like either very UK or very American. And I kind of went, let's just make this agnostic. So instead of saying you want Bio Strip 427 or something that you can't get it or an equivalent in the UK, it's like, right, what will work for everyone? isopropanol strips paint, let's do that. How to pour paint into dropper bottles, let's do that. And then from there,
Sure.
it grew and grew. And I thought, I wonder if I can try and get some free stuff. Like, am I big enough for that? So I reached out to 10 paint companies and went, hey, I've done an article on the top 10 paints, and it was based on popularity, but
Yep.
I talked about the values of them.
Yeah.
So I reached out to all 10 paint companies and went, hey, can you send us some paints? 9 of them said yes, and then 2 others who they'd contacted also got in touch with me and went, yeah, we'll send you some paints. So then I started paint reviews, then I started brush reviews, then airbrush reviews,
Yeah.
then lots of comparisons. And then obviously I then became, with Fauxhammer.com, 2 things. 1, I was the guy who was doing the tool reviews, and 2 was there's a Partworks magazine that we got a good relationship with those guys, and now we get to like do the announcement. So it was kind of 2 parts of the hobby coming together. Like, hey, beginners, welcome. Partworks magazine, also check these tools out. And then 3D printing became a tool for the hobby. So I started doing that, and then as I started getting 3D printers, companies stopped speaking to me, because despite a website having 500,000 views a month,
Yeah.
unless you've had an Instagram following, a Twitter following, a YouTube or a Facebook following,
Sure.
they didn't want to know you. So I thought, right, well, let's jump into YouTube. And it was already going, and I was trying, and I had about a year ago, maybe 18 months ago, I had about 5,000 subscribers. Anyway, just through the Partworks stuff, and then the last year it has blown up.
So in terms of timeline, when did you create your YouTube channel with the tooltips and stuff like that?
Yes.
A long time ago.
I don't even, the problem, it was sometime in the last 4 years, but also COVID happened in that time, and therefore time is no longer a constant in my memory.
Yeah.
Like, I can't.
Everyone we've interviewed said the same thing. As soon as COVID hit, it's for our sort of modeling and hobbyist sort of thing, it's sort of taken off, and the interest has grown as well. But did you have an interest in like Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons before you started this hobby? Is that why you were doing that? You were painting?
Yeah. I was very much. I always loved. I remember years ago, I was 11 years old in my junior school, and a guy called Alan walked in with this thing, which I now know is the Dreadnought from Space Crusade, which I finally got to see first time ever physically. I was on a show called The Painting Phase the other day, and they've got one. So it's the first time ever. I got dead excited. Like, that's what got me into the hobby. And to me, that was like, oh my God, it's like my dad and me did Airfix kits and stuff. But this to me, it was like, it's like Ed 209 and I can paint it. And yeah, we got into that, and I got into that then. And so weirdly, as another story, you might want to hear it, you might not. So Warhammer World, the big Warhammer thing, that was actually my mum's idea.
Oh, wow.
Interesting fact for you.
There you go.
Kind of was and wasn't, but it was. And I'm telling you what it was. But so I got into Warhammer years ago. I was massively into painting. Like, I think it's a story many people can, relate to. I was very much a loner kid.
Yeah.
My nearest friends were like half a town away. So, my spare time was sat in my bedroom, nerdy TV shows or films on, painting miniatures. And I've always loved painting miniatures, just the process. And
well, it's amazing how different it is, because I think I've mentioned it before that the old figures that we used to paint used to be metal figures, but they didn't have the detail. And then I haven't seen any of the stuff until this new stuff's come out now, and I can't believe the detail that they had when I thought back in the day that the metal figures were like the best thing you could ever get. And it's amazing how that hobby has progressed. And we did an interview with Kathy Millett recently, and she was talking about how the whole Warhammer world is such a $1 billion industry now, and the amount of interest in it. And I do think the pandemic's got a lot to do with that as well, because I think a lot of people are now going back to the hobbies which kept them at home. But
yes, I think everyone has a very similar story. I think a lot of people just were looking around for something. That's what I did. I was looking around for something to sort of get me away from the computers, which has completely failed simply because frankly everything is connected to a computer these days. So every hobby has websites, etc. So that failed dismally. That was the idea, was to get away, just to do something different. And again, I've always had I think the making things, crafting, that kind of stuff. I think everyone kind of did that. So it was a case of, well, what did I enjoy maybe when I was younger? Let's do that. But as Wayne was saying, then you look at the whatever hobby it was. It could have been gaming, could have been scale kits, even a little bit of part working, because that's been around for long enough. And you can't believe how it's changed, how it's evolved. It's a completely different environment these days, with so much to sort of take in, and so much that you can immerse yourself in. I mean, you seem to do lots of different things. You have a few different interests, but they all seem to me to interlock really well into I guess what you call a maker hobby, because you're a maker, but you also seem to be communicating a lot of information. You're also demystifying a lot of stuff, and again, back to 3D printing, I guess. That's kind of the core, it seems to me. I tend to gravitate back to your site when I want to answer a question. What did Ross think about this? Has he looked at this before? Because I think very few people maybe have the breadth of knowledge and have had the experience of maybe early-ish printers and now what's happening today. And I think that's a huge service which kind of doesn't exist anywhere else apart from the kind of stuff you're doing.
Yeah, I think, well, there's a few of me. There's a few people, like I want to give a shout out to people like Vogman, for example. Brilliant guy. Jeff, I think his name is. He's massive. He's a hero to me. He was the guy who I followed when I got into it in the early days and things like that. So there are a few of us, but yeah, like I very much pride the content on, I suppose, one level is demystifying, but the other thing is more just like going and reading the marketing page and then like almost with a checklist going, that's rubbish, that's rubbish, that's rubbish. I'm not using the correct term that I would normally use because I'm trying to not swear. I'm being good. Absolute, we'll say rubbish instead of bull mess. So so just tick, and that, to be honest, makes a video, because the thing for me is back in the day when I first got into the hobby, I bought like all my plastic miniatures from Games Workshop. Then I bought my clippers from Games Workshop and my brushes from Games Workshop. I had no idea that there was a wider world of things out there. And when you don't know, and obviously back in the 90s it was different. We didn't have an internet, or at least not really. But, going out there and now to see how it's become, like, you would get the Games Workshop tool because it was all Now you've got everyone chiming in going, ours is the best, this is the best. And the truth is, like, well, with brushes anyway, the best one is the best one that works for you.
Absolutely.
Try as many as you can. Try your friends. Try this. There are popular ones. There are good ones and bad ones, but things like that. And when it comes to 3D printers, there's so much where it's just like, hey, bigger number will sell this printer, and actually that bigger number, or even smaller number in some cases, isn't right. And case in point is things like the Elegoo Mars, which has the smallest square pixels on the market right now, but because of the light source and the way they built it, and for technology even I don't fully understand or can't communicate well, is they're tiny pixels, but it's bloated. They're bloated prints. They're quite fat. So, and it's things like that. So what I want is to help people. I want to reduce the amount of buyer's remorse out there. And that's kind of the core of what I want to do. Is I'm not beholden to any company. I do have a company at the moment, and it'll be on my videos when the video comes to light, who that is, who are pretty much like, we don't really want to support you with printers because you're too honest. Like, wow. Okay. Which I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to get sued for that. That I'm want to be clear. I'm paraphrasing what I've interpreted from what they've said. But yeah, like that is something that I just don't subscribe to as a business practice.
No. Absolutely not.
So in terms of 3D printing, then where did you start? Did you start with the filament printer and then move on to resin, like most of us done because the technologies of known, or did you go straight into resin?
Yeah, other way around for me.
Wow.
I wasn't
All
even
right.
interested in FDM because for me it was miniatures, and
Right.
Of course.
I saw what everyone else saw. I was like,
Mm.
well, I want to paint my Warhammer figures, but they're so expensive. Even
Mhm.
though I'd already got more than I could paint in my lifetime if I do the math. There's just this drive, isn't there, in the Warhammer community? It's to collect as much grey
Much as you
plastic as
can.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, you ought to see my kit stash in the loft. That extends past my lifetime as well. So
there you go. So,
that's never going to happen.
but you
But
can't get rid of it because one day you might just feel
nope,
inspired to do that
absolutely. And that's what I do
vehicle.
sometimes. I go up there and I go, oh,
Yeah,
I've forgotten about that, and
yeah,
off I go. Brilliant.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I just find it's quite interesting then that if you did start with resin printers, then you were exposed to all the problems that you have with making sure the levels, but make sure the resin's right, make sure that the exposure's right, and all of that straight away. So for you, was it trial and error, realizing what the solution was, and that's why you wanted to communicate those sort of things out, or?
I think I started with the Photon S,
Uh-huh.
which was, I did a review of it online. And I was like, hey, this is good. We're nearly there, but it wasn't quite at the quality then. It was, but I only got standard resin and didn't realize. But even that old 2K resolution printer was okay. But yeah, I had the problems like leveling
Yeah.
wasn't a massive problem. You could do it, but it wasn't so much trial and error because the I feel that the support forums back then were a lot more helpful. Like nobody knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
nobody knew
We're
back
all in
then.
together, basically.
Yeah, exactly. We're
Yeah.
we're all like trying to figure out, hey, how does this work? Guessing through it, and nobody. I think everyone suggested what to do, but nobody knew why.
Yeah.
And now you've got a lot of people who probably do know what to do and know why, but their understanding of why and the general understanding of why aren't quite gelling. So you can go to a forum now, post one problem, get 5 different identical answers
Yeah.
that all read different but mean the same thing, and you're kind of like confused and stuff. So I after the Photon S, I was like, yeah, it's not quite ready. And then I don't know why. I think it was around Christmas time, and I'd had a fairly flush month through the website, and
Mm-hmm.
so I just want to be clear, like the website is pretty much and hasn't been worked on by me for a long time now. There's a guy called Rob who's the main writer, and a guy called Jordan. So I need to give huge shout out to them for basically taking over on the thing. So we did really well one month, and I thought, right. I got them some bits and some Christmas stuff, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to invest in 3D printers and try and sell those as a like, because you get affiliate payments
Yeah.
back, and
Yeah.
That's
like
right. Yeah.
maybe that's how I could evolve the website into such and such. But I did a video instead and did the edit, and I was looking at what everyone was saying, and I had a really bad time with mine. It was the Frozen Mini 8K.
Uh-huh.
And I did a video of, look, I've had a really bad time with it, but oh my God, the quality is incredible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many problems with this printer, but buy it anyway. It's amazing. And then at the same time, I think it was another NE Cubic. And after those 2 videos, companies started emailing me
Yeah.
going, can we send you a thing? And I was like, wow, yeah, of
Mhm.
course you can. I'm not going to say no. And then it was like FDM printers, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing with FDM printers, but and oh God, FDM is so hard.
I know. I know. I was
It's
hoping that there would be a printer out, and I think a lot of people that are new to 3D printing or never done 3D printing before want a machine that they can just take out, either put the resin in, put the filler in, and they know it's going to print perfect every time. But
yeah.
even to this day, we're not at that stage. I mean, even with they quote it with the uniformation that I got here. It's yeah, you said I know what you mean. But it is a case that I'd like to see that happen soon.
They're genuinely, so only in the last few months it's been quite quiet, and I've only just recently put a video out. There is one, and I'm not joking. You take it out of the box, you put the resin in, the slicer's all proprietary, you put the
Wow.
model in, you press support, it supports it with the best supports I've ever seen, as in I'd rather use those supports than auto supports. Sorry, I'd rather use those auto supports than people's manual supports. You press print, and because it's their resin and their thing, it just prints, and it just works in every
Wow.
way. But nobody's going to buy that.
Wow.
because nobody will subscribe. Like, it's $2,000 for the printer, and nobody's gonna and it's locked to their resin. You can't
Yeah.
Yeah,
use other resin.
I think I know which one you're talking
I
about.
know what you mean.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah, and you're kind of stuck, and it's like I've tried talking to them for months and saying, look, I get where you're coming from, but you need to do what you're doing, but open it up. That was the bamboo approach.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
use our filament and it just works.
Absolutely.
To be fair, most others do as well, but yeah, use our filament, it just works. But you can use what you want. These guys are use our stuff, and nobody will subscribe to that, because if this fails as a product and they stop making the resin,
Yeah.
like, you've got a
Absolutely.
$2,000 paperweight.
You have it. You've got a brick
Absolutely.
system.
Because that's
So,
the,
but
I
it's
think
good.
that's the I guess the barrier. I think a lot of people look at sites like yours because that they are absolutely confused. Well, what should I get? Where should I start? Because this stuff is moving so quickly. It's like it's like PCs back in the day. Where do you start?
Yeah.
Which one do you jump in and buy? It's obsolete in a year, but you got to start somewhere. Otherwise, you don't have a computer, do you? So which one do you get? And I think what you're saying, and a lot of stuff across your YouTube channel, it kind of tries to demystify that. That try not to believe the, I guess, the marketing, because I think recently it's all been about speed, hasn't it? Fastest printer possible, because no one wants to hang around for a day waiting for a print. So the whole thing's been our printer's the fastest one on the marketplace, and it's fantastic and wonderful. But I think what you've said a lot is, that's absolutely great. And faster printers are brilliant, but you've got to put that into the context of all the other bits and pieces that go with that. The quality you're going to get off it, the resin that's being used, etc., and the settings and all the rest of it. You can't just focus on, I'll just buy the fastest printer and that will be fantastic. That's not really how it works. Because I was doing what you were doing. I was looking at how to print figures the best possible way I could. And I went down the rabbit hole of looking at the smallest possible pixel, because that's surely if the smallest micron printer must be the best, because it can print at that level. That's the mindset I kind of had. But then because you came back and said, well, that's correct to a point, but then think about the resin, because ultimately that figure will then be incredibly brittle because of how you've decided to set that machine up, etc. So there's kind of a sweet spot in the middle where you're balancing the resin, you're balancing speed, you're balancing the level of microns, etc. How small you can print, and all these things you have to balance, and then decide, well, what kind of printing do you want to do? That kind of thing. That's a very interesting, I think, usefulness for the site, because that still confuses me. Where do you start? Where do you begin? What's your shopping list like when you're looking for say your first printer? So I think sites like yours, they demystify that a little bit, or at least they give you an idea of, well, have a think about this. Don't go down, it's a fast printer, just buy that one. Maybe that's not good. That's not going to be ideal for whatever kind of printing you want to do. Because I know Wayne does lots of different kinds. You've lots of filament, lots of resin, and I think you have to match what you're trying to achieve with the printer, and you may need several printers ultimately to do what you want to do.
Yeah, true. Yep.
Where do you think these printers are evolving to now? You just mentioned the one earlier, but where do you think they're going to be in the next 5 or 10 years?
I think 5 or 10, blooming out. Like I would like to. I'd like to see DLP coming back. I mean, to be fair, I don't want to look that far ahead, because in 5 or 10 years, what I want to do is, have the machine where you go up to it and you go fish, and it goes, today's fish is creme, and then that's what I want in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I think would really kick off this whole 3D printing hobby, and you've probably heard it before, and you were just mentioned it before with that printer that was locked and closed source. But having some sort of closed source system like the Amazon Kindle for books, so people can actually buy sculpts and stuff online and they can't be copied. They'll download straight to the machine, and that machine can only print a certain amount.
Yeah.
If that could happen, then folks like Warhammer, Airfix, they can actually market these files without any fear of them being copied. I'd love to see technology move into that direction, but whether it will, because with digital, there's always a way around, isn't there?
Yeah, there always is. Because now that Amazon Kindle exists, nobody downloads copies of books.
No.
I had this chat the other week with somebody else, and it's the same with MP3 and video. Like, no, that doesn't happen, does it? But no, you're right. It'd at least give companies a controlled system to do that. And I think what I'd like to see is hobby stores. I think with a kiosk in the store, not like a customer kiosk, but like I mean, resin printing's getting pretty fast, but there are printers out there that can auto remove the bed. So stores where people can order, I'd like this online, click and collect. It'll be ready by 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and I'll go and fetch it. And then it automatically goes to the store. It prints in the store. It drops off the bed, it prints, comes off the bed automatically, goes into a bucket, and all the store staff has to do is take it out of a bucket. Wow. and then pop it in a little plastic bag, and there you go. But to do that, we've got to, well, first of all, build the technology, make it safe. We've got the thing that people don't talk about enough, and I don't talk about because I don't know, I'm not a scientist, is any potential health risks with these machines. And what it's kicking out into the air. I've come down this morning. I've got 3 on at the moment. I've got ventilation, but I've had my door open for the last 2 hours, and I've been shivering because I want this all out the house.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. Yeah,
No,
and
I think
that
again,
sort of
that's another issue, because a lot of the early printers, a lot of early reviews said that this resin stuff stinks to high heaven. So you need to don't do this in a closed environment, lots of ventilation, etc. And I think that kind of put a lot of people off. That's I'd like to get into that, but not if I'm going to end up in hospital or something.
Exactly.
But again, it's just be sensible, etc. That kind of thing. I think that's the message, I think, with a lot of these printers. But I think you're right. I think how you access them. I mean, I haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet. I think a lot of people would. I think have probably already downloaded some STL files and got those printed by a bureau somewhere. That's a very expensive way of doing it. But if you're only going to do 1 or 2 a year, say, if you really want something, that's okay. That's probably going to be cost effective. But eventually, if you're doing this a lot, you're putting a lot of stuff through the agencies. Eventually, you could have bought a printer for what you've paid to get these printed by third parties. So there's that kind of cross on the graph where you think, well, it's time to buy a printer because I'm doing so much. Because the STL community is absolutely massive. It's just growing at a sort of exponential rate. You can type anything into Google and find a file almost.
You can't like we've gone from the day of like, I hope, like for me at least, like I'm not of the D&D scene. I've got friends who play D&D, but they just do the computerized version and do it on a web chat kind of thing, like no miniatures. They've got printed sculpts that I've done for them of their characters, but just as like statues and things like that.
Sure.
But for me, it's all about Warhammer, and we've gone from, at least it was all about Warhammer, but we've now gone from like, I hope they release this new Space Wolf with this weapon pack and that, to, I can print a penguin that fights like that's got like a bow and arrow or a giant knife, and I can just like proxy them as orcs and have an army of penguins, because that's interesting. No one's seen that, and I think especially you being creators yourselves, people, at least for me, I do get a kick out of that. What's the word? Like a little bit of narcissism in me. Like I'm an introverted narcissist, and I very much like that. Hey, I like my likes on Instagram when people tick things and do these things. Sure. And what I've seen is people really appreciate originality in this space. Like seeing a work in progress of, hey, I'm making this, is normally liked or applauded or respected more than the finished piece, because as much as the last bit looks good, let's be fair, what we all care about is the process. How did you do that? How did you create that? Oh my god, where's that from? How can I do the same thing? And that's the draw in the maker hobby, in the miniatures hobby, is like that, the journey and the concept and the ideas.
I think it's how you are creating the stuff. I think that's also very very interesting. So I visit my local IPMS group, in fact tonight, oddly enough. And often they'll say, well, you're the tech guy, 3D printing, and they go, well, this part, can you 3D print that part for me? I go, well, have you got the STL file? Well, no. Well, no, I can't. So there's that mismatch between how
Yeah,
they understand how 3D printing works, because there's no model of that.
yeah,
So I said, well, not at the moment, but if I had a scanner, yes, I could. I could scan it, and away we go. It seems to
yeah,
me
yeah,
that's a very interesting part of the whole 3D printing environment. What's happening with scanning, frankly. It's much cheaper, etc. You can get some really good stuff on Kickstarters these days. So pair that with a very good resin printer, and you could do some very, very interesting things, because the
yeah.
scanners are much better and much, much cheaper than they used to be.
Yeah, yeah. I've got weirdly, I've been sat on a review of the Revo Pop 3 for over a year,
Mm.
and the reason why I haven't put a video out is because I don't know what I'm doing with it. Like, I'm not a modeler, so I've done it, and they've been like, "Hey, have you done that video yet?" And I've been like, I've scanned again. It's the painting phase who I mentioned earlier. I went and scanned their heads, and I wanted to turn them into like heads you can put on Space Marines
Yeah.
as like maybe as a
Yeah, yeah,
fun
yeah.
giveaway
Yeah, yeah.
thing
Sure,
for
sure,
their
sure.
fans because they're good friends. I've been on a couple of trips with them and made good friends with them, and I thought I'll do that, and that'll be interesting content that people want to
Mm.
watch. But then even after a scan, and I've got some of the best scans, you've got like artifacts where for one frame it's like seeing the cheek like 3 millimeters away from the face, and it's like all the cleanup and stuff like that. You To me, there's very little point having a 3D scanner still without, maybe this is the video, but without having that level of ability to actually sculpt beyond
Yeah.
the initial scan
Mhm.
and fix the problems. And I don't
Well,
even know where
that's
to
how
start.
these desktop scanners sort of market themselves, don't they?
Yeah.
They're almost like they look like angle poised lamps, or
Yep. Yep.
frankly, on a gimbal. That's what they are.
Yeah.
So you put your model on the base, hit go, and it basically just scans the whole thing, and it's done.
Yeah.
That's how they kind of market these things. But the cleanup afterwards must be, the learning curve there must be very, very steep.
Yeah.
But the way they come across is that you can scan anything, you name it, you
Yeah.
can scan it very, very quickly, very, very easily. There's your STL file, into your slicer, done.
Yeah.
And think, fantastic, let's do that. But
And then they buy it, and it's
not
like,
so
oh,
much,
it's not.
guys.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
it's not quite there yet. Not really. Um, Depends how good you are with, I guess, with 3D modeling applications. If you are any good with them at all,
Yeah.
so I think most people, I think for 3D, they're exposed to slicers. Of course, I mean, Wayne talks about this a lot on his channel.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing as 3D modeling. That's taking an existing, I guess, file and making it ready. And again, there's that mismatch between, well, what's slicing and what's the modeling. On those two the same? And
Yeah.
no, they're not. They fit very, very closely together. But again, that's more education, and that's quite again fairly steep learning curve, depending on what kind of 3D modeling application you want to try and learn. There are
Yeah.
quite a lot out there, and some of them will cost you a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
some of the very best ones. So again, it's that mix of scanning, slicing, 3D modeling, etc. Even before you get near a printer.
I do think that's a good segue into the question that if someone was looking to get into this hobby for the first time, what advice would you give them?
Oh, you're going to put Ross on the spot now.
Oh, yeah.
Where to
On
go?
the
What to
spot.
buy? Let's have a massive spike in sales for whichever machine you're about to mention.
Just do me a favor, like just cut everything after you asking that question, so it looks
Yeah.
like I'm with the answer like that on the spot.
Absolutely.
Where would you start? I would start by watching the videos from Fauxhammer on what to
Good man.
expect
Get the plug
before you
in.
get
Absolutely. Good man.
shameless self plug.
Selfless.
No, I
Absolutely.
think
Yeah.
you've got to understand what you're getting yourself in for. Like at the end of the day, like I'm the guy who needs to sell printers and earn a commission to feed my family. Yet I'm still the guy saying don't just rush into this, because the last thing I want is somebody to really have a bad experience and go, this is not for me. Like you've got to understand that in order to do this, it's not a tidy process. It is messy. So, but I don't want to scare anyone, but like it is a case of you need a printer, you need a wash and cure station, ideally, unless you want to do it outside. And that can be as simple as your wash station can be a pickle jar and your cure station can be the sun. But you need a tray to keep things on, and you need an area of your house to put that is safe. So normally a garage, shed, unused room, you can use it in a living space. But if you're going to do that, you want an enclosure with a vent probably out the window or something. You know, just to do that. Now, again, I'm saying this from I've heard everything from the amount of chemicals given off by these things are harmless to this is going to kill everyone, and I've heard everything, and I don't know who's right. So the only reason I'm saying is vent it out your house is I'm covering my ass to make sure, you know, I'm not encouraging people to do things that are potentially harmful for them in the future. But you need that space. You need to know that you need that space. And then it's picking a printer. And you were talking earlier about how confusing it is. And in order to try and demystify that, I spent last year going, right, here's a review for each printer, then each similar printer compared, then if within the same brand, then the three across the three brands compared. Then at the end of the year, I did we're going into Christmas now. Here's all the printers in price order and whether you shouldn't get them over the previous one and what to consider. And I tried to basically hold people's hand and walk them through that journey. The idea is, what's your budget? Like, decide that first. Because if your budget is 400 quid, then don't go looking at £1,000 worth of printer. It probably isn't worth it to you as a starter printer to spend that much more unless the features that it has are worth that extra money for you. And I tried to do it that way. And now here we are, just literally started this week with Elegoo releasing the Saturn 4 and Saturn 4 Ultra, or at least for pre-order. Here I am starting again. So everything I did last year is it's true now, but in the next 2-3 months will become less and less relevant as these new machines drop, and I have to start all over again. But at least now I've got the model to build from, and I know what I did last time, and all I need to do is do it again.
If anyone, I think also have a very serious think about what you want to print with this thing. Because that will often lead you to the ideal printer. And what do you want to print with the thing? You know, because all printers you can't print everything with the same printer. So what do you want to print? And whatever that is, then that will at least discount probably quite a lot, probably 80% of the printers out there, which are not going to be appropriate because you can't print what you want to print. Now, figures is a good example. You know, what do you want to print with that? How big do you want these things to be, etc. And you know,
I always forget that. Like, you say that, and like, because I'm so focused on miniatures, I do have a habit of forgetting that resin printers, we're talking obviously resin mainly, are not just used for miniatures and sculpts and busts and dioramas, but they're actually used for jewelry with castable materials.
Absolutely.
They're used in prosthetics. They're used in dental. Like, people, I would imagine in the UK we've got like quite a bit of legislation around what materials and printers you can use, but I've had people from countries around the world where it's a bit more open just say, hey, I want to buy this printer. It's 20 grand for a dental printer, but will this work with that resin? And all you have to do is look at the wavelength and the printer and go, yes, it will. It probably will, but you know, by all means. So there's somewhere out there in the middle of the earth where someone's having their new teeth printed on a GK2. I promise this has happened. But you're right, I forget about that all the time. I do forget that there are different applications. For me, it's the clear one is like, if you're printing small stuff, if you need detail, go resin. And to be honest, detail wise, anything in the last year can be pretty much on par with each other. The quality difference has not significantly improved.
Well, that was the almost the final thing, I guess, for this kind of conversation equation is that it seems to me that's exactly right. I think previously I said, excuse me, a lot of the focus was on speed. Yeah. How can we differentiate our printer from the other guys? Because they're all basically the same. So if that's true, then do you think I don't think we've plateaued yet, but it seems to me that we're getting very close to really all, say, resin printers, let's choose those. They can kind of do it. They can be the same. They can do all of this stuff for you. So then, of course, the question is, okay, if there's 10 in the marketplace, 10 of these printers, which one do I print? Which one do I pick? If they're all kind of the same, then it's down to the details, isn't it? It's down to what exactly do you want to print with that? and then work backwards. Because if you want to differentiate, because that's what the manufacturers are trying to do, differentiate themselves in the marketplace with speed, with larger build plates, whatever it is. It's kind of, for me, it's kind of down to the detail then. Once you say that's more, I need to print at that resolution, this is how big I want to go, it's going to be resin, that's how big the bath needs to be. And after that, it's the details. It's okay, what's different from your machine to this machine? And is that going to be useful for me? If it isn't, then you're off the list.
Yeah. I think when it comes to that, like genuinely, pretty much, kind of like collective, pretty much any printer sort of 10-inch and below that was released in the last year by any of the main known brands, like any Cubic, Elegoo, Frozen, Uniformation. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Any of those printers will be indistinguishable in terms of detail, and that was my big argument of the whole last generation. Everyone's pushing. I've got 8K, I've got 12K, I've got 14K, and it's like none of this is better, guys.
It isn't. I swapped out my 8K on my Uniformation with 12K. Not one bit of difference at all.
No.
Is that right? No discernible difference.
No difference at all.
Wow.
I actually swapped mine back because there is no discernible difference, and the 12K screen's smaller. Like it's 0.3 of an inch, but it's like, no, I want my bigger screen. Like when I'm printing small things, I like that area. But I think the other amusing thing is like what people do. Like let's take miniatures for example, or even castables. What you get is normally resins are at two sides of a spectrum. You either get really detailed but incredibly brittle, or really durable but soft, rounded. It doesn't render the detail as much. And because you get that, people kind of want to go in the middle. So when you add that into the equation of all these printers are getting higher resolution, well, to be fair, the resin that you're using for soft castable resin for jewelry or for miniatures, you want, like, if you play on the tabletop and you're not just a display painter, then you want something that'll withstand at least the occasional drop or topple, then you're getting a softer resin anyway. So yes, all these resolutions are getting better, but your resin cannot render the level of detail 2 generations of printer ago. So everyone was getting help about, oh, this one's this K, that one's that K. Frozen started it. Like Frozen really wowed people with the Mini 8K when that came out. But then that was soon trumped by the Mighty 8K because you've got a larger build plate for what is essentially the same quality. And we've never really improved greatly from there. The amount of detail extra you get is not perceivable on any printed model, I would argue. So we're there. I think the next thing, the reason why people should look for newer printers is convenience features, and it has been for a while. So things like a vat that doesn't have annoying screws but levers on it, just to make it easier to lift in and out. The build plate the same, or the big one. I think the big one I'm going to be talking about a lot this generation, I can already see it, is heaters. Because obviously the GK2's got one. A lot of people do print in garages and sheds, and a lot of companies now are adding heaters to printers. But the two I've seen so far, or the one I've seen so far, and the other one I know about, is basically it's pumping heat up into the chamber, and then it's heating the top of the chamber. Then obviously heat rises, so the warmest part of the chamber is at the top. The coolest part of the chamber is the resin vat at the bottom, and the coolest part is the resin at the bottom of that vat, which is the bit that wants to be the hottest. You don't want your printed model hot. You want that cool, so it's not stretchy. And it's like, so they've. It seems that brands have added this heater to tick a box that people want ticking because heater, and people will see integrated heater, but they're the most inefficient ways to heat resin. And it's why to me, like, with the value, it's a difficult one now, because the Uniformation GK2 has easily been this is the best printer because quality wise it's there, it's got the heater underneath, it does everything, and it just works. But Elegoo have just come out with the Mars 4 Ultra, which, if you've got your heating sorted and you don't need to worry about heat, maybe it's indoors, the speed of that printer with no quality loss at the price, it's now much harder to justify that jump of double the price. So and that's just the truth. And then we've got any
well, I think
out and
absolutely. I think the takeaway is basically subscribe to your channel and keep
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, you know exactly what the hell's going on. And
I got on a rant there. Yeah,
is the Saturn 4 any good? And well, Ross will tell you in a few weeks' time. That's the ultimate thing. Well, unfortunately, Ross, we've come to the end of our time. Unfortunately, we could have probably spoken for a few hours, but it's always the case with these. We get people on, and they're so interesting. We can say, well, have you got all day? Because we haven't. So we have to sort of limit their podcast to not 4 hours. Which is where a lot of some podcasts out there are, which is crazy times. As I say again, we've unfortunately come to the end, Ross. Again, thanks for taking the time to sort of speak to us today. I think that's been a real eye opener. I think a lot of people learn a great deal from that. Maybe they were confused about 3D printing. Which one should I get? All this speed malarkey and all the rest of it. Hopefully, that's demystified a lot of that. So hopefully, people be a bit more comfortable when they go shopping for their first one, which will be me later in the year once I've got my garage ready for that, because at the moment it's leaking. So once my roof's fixed, I'll be jumping on onto the 3D print bandwagon with something, at least probably whatever you decided to recommend. Again, thanks for taking the time, Ross, and hopefully we'll speak to you again in the future, because I'm sure this thing moves so quickly. I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to speak to you again in the not too distant future.
Yeah, it'll be great. Thanks for having me, guys. Great. I'll hope to speak to you again. Thanks a lot.
Well, we've come to the end of this episode. Time has really flown by as usual. Many thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode. And to get in touch with any burning questions that you may have, do get in touch. We'd love to hear from each and every one of you. Speaking of the next episode, a special guest next time is none other than Dale Luckhurst, the head of brand for Airfix at Hornby Hobbies. Until the next time, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Wayne.
Take care, everybody.
Welcome to the Scale Model World Podcast.